Hey there, chemistry students. So in our first unit in chemistry, we're going to talk about some lab-related issues. As we go through chemistry, we learn about chemistry. We're going to be working every now and then with some chemicals. We'll go in the lab and work with some chemicals. And we want to know how to stay safe in doing that, and we want to know about some of the equipment that we're going to be using as we work with those chemicals. So our first unit, we're going to talk about some of those things. There's two targets in this first unit. The first one is about lab safety, some of the lab safety policies and procedures and some of the things you do in the lab to help keep you safe when you're working with chemicals. And then the second target later in the unit is going to be about some of that equipment that we're going to use as we're working in the lab, to become familiar with it, to know how to use it, what it's called, what it's used for, those sorts of things. So today we're going to talk a little bit about lab safety. Our target is to be able to know and apply lab safety practices. So let's go ahead and let's talk about some of those things. Welcome to the lab. Now you'll see I've had to change the wardrobe. When I come to work in the lab, there are some things that we put on to help keep us safe, right? You'll notice I have my snazzy goggles. They help protect my eyes. If I have something spill in my face, protect it. If I have some glass shatter in my face, protect it. If I have something blow up in my face, protect it. My eyes gonna be good, right? Okay, I also have my snazzy lab coat. It's fashionable, right? Okay, my lab coat helps protect me and my clothes. If I'm working with a chemical, I spill it, oops, it's on my lab coat, not on my snazzy science shirt, right? If I'm working with some fire, the lab coat is most likely flame resistant, right? So hopefully I don't burn to death. So all these good things we have in place to help protect us. Now, I don't have lab coats for all of my students. You'll be fine without a lab coat. I do have goggles. I have tons of goggles. So, well, they're safety glasses, not goggles, but same point, same purpose, same function. So we can definitely protect your eyes. So some fun and interesting words about goggles and safety glasses. Okay, you'll notice they do make goggles that fit over glasses. You can see I wear glasses and then I have goggles over them. So they're nice and convenient. I have my fancy pair of goggles that fit over my glasses. The other safety glasses that I have won't necessarily fit over your glasses all that well. You can buy one of these yourself if you want at pretty much any home improvement section. I think these cost like $3. Right, so they're not that big of an investment. Secondly, very common practice in labs. I don't know how much we're going to do it in my chemistry lab, but it's very common practice, is for people who wear contact lenses. Contact lenses can be bad in a chemistry eye accident. Okay, if you spill some chemical on your eye, heaven forbid, then it can get underneath your contact lens, and the contact lens will kind of get it stuck there and held there, and ouch, I wouldn't want that to happen. So some people might choose not to wear contact lenses in the chemistry lab. Others, oftentimes what people might do is they might put a sticker on the side of their goggles that says that they wear contact lenses. And that way, if they get into some kind of trouble, if there's an emergency, if somebody needs to help them, then they know that person's wearing contact lenses. You can't just flush out your eyes if you got a chemical in there. You got to take out the contact lens and then flush out the eye. Another fun thing, acids will melt a contact lens, and if you spill an acid in your eye while you're wearing contact lenses, it's gonna melt that contact lens right onto your eye. Not fun to think about, right? So, just some common things about contact lenses in safety glasses in the chemistry lab. Now, once you're in the chemistry lab and you're all dressed up and you're ready to work on your chemistry experiment, you will have some directions. The directions I will give you, they might be on paper, they might be electronic. Either way, it's much easier to know what you're doing in the lab before you start, which means you should read the directions before you start. I think it goes without saying, follow the directions, don't try to wing it, follow the directions, and read through it before you start, right? So if I come into the lab and I'm looking at these and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? I could take my directions and say, okay, step 1, do this. step 2, do this, and so forth. But it's much easier to have an idea of what you're doing first. Say, okay, for step 1, I need to add this. For step 2, I need to add that. And then I can come here and say, oh, so first I do this, and then I do this. So being prepared beforehand, having an idea of what you're doing is a good idea. Sometimes when you come into the chemistry lab, you might see some stuff that's like really cool and you're like, man, I want to mess with that. But, the stuff that you see in the lab, keep in mind, you're not the only class that comes in here. Other classes come in here and they do different experiments. And so, you see something that might be really, really cool and you want to mess with it, but you don't know about it, right? Maybe it's somebody else's experiment. You mess with it, maybe you mess up their experiment. Maybe there's something dangerous about it that you don't know, and I haven't given you proper safety instructions for it because it's not for your class. So you come into the chemistry lab, wow, that's cool, I want to mess with it. Don't. When you work in a chemistry lab, you never want to work in a chemistry lab alone, by yourself. You always want to have another person in the lab in case there's an accident. It shouldn't be an issue. When you come into my classroom, you should never be in here by yourself anyway, right? But if you do come in here, find yourself by yourself, don't start working on a chemistry lab, right? We should always work with a friend. Always work with a science buddy. Now, when you do experiments, generally, I'm going to allow you to have a lab partner or 2, right? Maybe you'll have 1 lab partner, maybe you'll have 2. It depends on how big the class is. If the class is small enough, I'll allow you to work by yourself if you want. That's fine. But there should always be somebody else in the room in case there's an accident. Somebody who can help you out just in case. Right next to the classroom door, you'll find another door. And a lot of times, students wonder, what's in there? What's in that room? Usually I leave that door locked. That is the science storeroom. That's where I keep all the extra chemicals and all the extra equipment and stuff like this. There's no reason for students to go in there unless I ask them to go in there and get something. I probably won't do that. Usually I leave this door locked, but sometimes I want to get in and out easily. I don't lock it. Sometimes maybe I forget to lock it, right? There shouldn't be any reason for you to go in that room, right? And just to kind of put your curiosity aside, let's go see what's in that room. Come on. You can see it's not all that exciting. I have some shelves here. You'll find some textbooks. You'll find some chemicals. I have shelves and shelves of chemicals. Ignore the dead people on the other side of the room. That's for the biology classes. I have some cabinets here, and the cabinets will find like stoppers and some glassware. There's really nothing all that exciting in this room that you're going to want to come in here for. So don't sneak in this room. Just kind of leave it alone, right? What happens if I'm doing my experiment and the bell rings? It's time to leave. Should I take these things with me and go home and finish my experiment? No. Don't take things from the science lab, right? You don't know. You take them out of here, then I'm missing them, then I gotta figure out who took them, then I got, there's discipline stuff involved. Don't do it. Don't take any chemicals or equipment out of the lab with you. If you didn't finish your experiment, come and talk to me. We'll find a time for you to finish your experiment. It's not that big a deal. Okay, so just don't take things away with you. So here I have a beaker full of highly corrosive acid. And let's say I'm very carefully bringing it to my workstation, but somebody has left something in the floor for me to trip over. What's going to happen to my terribly corrosive acid? It's going to spill all over me, right? So a really good guideline in the chemistry lab is don't leave stuff on the floor for people to trip over. Same thing goes for chairs, right? A lot of times people want to bring chairs back to the chemistry lab to sit on while they do their experiment. Don't bring chairs back here. They're easy to trip over. They're easy, to get in the way. Leave the chairs in the classroom. Keep the floor clear. It's a good idea. So let's say we're working on our experiment and, we're just following directions and doing what we're supposed to do. And we put our lab paper down and, oh my goodness, look at this. Some inconsiderate person has spilled some liquid on the counter, and now my lab paper is all wet. And this has my lab questions on it, and I got to turn this in. Terrible, right? So what's gonna happen here? You got a wet paper, right? Yeah, not a good day. If you make a spill, very simple. Clean it up. Not that hard, right? I got paper towels up on the walls. Wipe up your spill, throw it in the garbage can. Not on the floor, in the garbage can. Speaking of messes and spills, there is one kind of mess I do not want you to clean up by yourself. If you happen to break some glass, don't clean it up yourself, okay? I don't want you cleaning up broken glass. Broken glass needs to be cleaned up in a certain way. It needs to be disposed of in a cardboard box rather than just a garbage can, right? We don't want the person emptying the garbage can to cut themselves. It's gonna happen at some point during the school year. Somebody's gonna break something that's made out of the glass. It's not that big a deal. If you break glass, on accident, if you break glass doing science, it's cool. We're cool. Not a big deal. If you break glass on purpose, like I just did, or you break glass by goofing around or something, that's a different story. We're gonna talk about discipline and stuff. Let's not go there. But if you break some piece of glass just by accident while doing your experiment, it's not a big deal. Don't clean it up yourself. What you should do is you should notify all of your classmates around you that there's broken glass, and then come and get me. So you will notice towards the back of the room, there are several pieces of equipment here students are often curious about. The pieces of safety equipment that are here to help us just in case we need them, in case there's an accident, in case something happens. Let's take a look at a few of them and talk about when they should be used, when they should not be used, and what they're for. Okay, let's start with this big orange guy right here. The big orange guy is the chemical shower. Okay, the chemical shower, if you were to spill some chemical on you and it's burning you and you're gonna die, then what you do is you walk up to the shower, you pull on that triangle guy right there, and the shower will activate, water will come down, wash over you. Generally the way that you use it, you get under there, you get the water going, you take your clothes off so that the chemicals can get washed off of your body and stuff like that. I know it doesn't sound fun, but if you should be about to die, that's what you do, right? That said, when should we use this piece of safety equipment? We should use it when we're about to die. If you've spilled a lot of chemical on yourself and it is burning and you are totally gonna die, you go for that chemical safety shower, right? If you're not in that situation, you do not go for that chemical safety shower. If you take a look at this thing might have been here for 10 or 15 years. It looks brand new. It's never been used. You won't find any water spots. You won't find any water damage on the floor. At the time I've made this recording, it has never been used. Don't be the first one to use it, right? Don't pull that triangle if you're not about to die. If you come in here, I've had students, I so want to pull that triangle. I so want to do that. Don't do it. Nobody's ever activated that thing. That's it. If you think about it, when you leave a water device unused for a long period of time, what does the water end up looking like, right? The water sits in the pipes for a long time. It gets all rusty. It gets kind of nasty. You don't want to do that, right? So number one, be careful with your chemicals so you'll never have to use it. Number two, don't use it when it's not needed. When is it not needed? When you're not about to die. Okay. Attached to our big orange chemical shower, you'll find the eye wash. The eye wash is down in this section. Right? The eye wash is there in case you get something in your eye. If you get something in your eye and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible, then what you can do is you can run over here, put your eyes right down in there, and push the little thing forward. Push the little thing forward, water will shoot up into your eyes. You want to remove your safety glasses, any glasses you're wearing, any contacts you're wearing, get those out of your eye, and then hold your eyes open, let the water go in them. That's it. If you take a look at it, no one's ever used it. Hopefully nobody will ever have to use it, right? It's here in case, oh my goodness, we're in a terrible situation. Nobody has ever used this stuff. Don't be the first person. All right, take a look at some other stuff here. This big old box right here is what's called the fume hood. If we're doing an experiment, and usually you won't do this, but there are some things that I do where I need this, right? The fume hood you use when you are maybe doing a chemical reaction that's going to produce a poison gas. You don't want to produce a poison gas just, out in the room somewhere. If you do it under the fume hood, then, the vent will suck out the poison gas and you won't die, right? So the way it works, put your stuff in here, hold this down, do your chemistry under there. Hopefully it's on. When it's on, you can hear it running. Interesting thing, when you turn it off, and you wait a second for the air to stop, it'll beep. And you can easily stop the beep by pressing the button that says enter. So if you come in here, and it should probably never happen, but if you hear it beeping and you're like, oh my god, that's so annoying, go over there and press the enter button. And just make sure there's nothing underneath producing, toxic gases that you're gonna breathe if you turn it off, right? And that's the fume hood. The third thing over here to show you is this box over here that has a fire extinguisher in it. I'm sure everybody recognizes a fire extinguisher. Open the box. Take the fire extinguisher out, aim, squeeze, put out a fire, right? The other thing that's in here, this is very important. We'll find in here what looks like a blanket, and that's because it is. This is what's called a fire blanket, okay? And you want to use that fire extinguisher when there's a fire on something that's not a person, okay? Now, use some common sense. If you got a little fire on the table that you can easily just let burn out or put it out yourself, then either let it burn out or put it out yourself. If we got the cabinets are on fire, the wall is on fire, you can use that fire extinguisher. If a person's on fire, you don't use that fire extinguisher. Instead, you use the fire blanket, okay? If a person's on fire, what you do is you take the fire blanket, wrap it around them, it's kind of itchy, and the fire goes out, right? And then they're saved, right? So use the fire extinguisher on a thing, use the fire blanket on a person. Let's talk about who's responsible for that, okay? If we got a classmate that's on fire, are you gonna sit there and try to get my attention? I don't always see everything that's going on. Hopefully I see somebody who's on fire, but maybe I don't. Maybe 6 people are trying to ask me questions and the phone's ringing or something. I don't know. Somebody's on fire. Are you gonna wait for me? Don't let your classmate die. Go get that fire blanket, put them out. Don't wait on me. If I'm on the other side of the room and you're right there, get that fire blanket. Don't wait on me. If there's an emergency, act. Don't wait for me. One thing to add here about people being on fire, I know it's fun to think about, but sometimes students will think, if I'm on fire, maybe I use the chemical shower. Water puts out fire, right? And you're absolutely right. Water does put out fire, but it might not be the best option to use the chemical shower. If you have severe burns, if you're on fire and you have third-degree burns mean your skin has melted. And if you have melty skin and you get underneath the chemical shower, what's going to happen to your skin? I know it's fun to think about, but that's why we don't use the chemical shower if we're on fire. Instead, we have the fire blanket, right? The chemical shower might wash away your skin. The fire blanket won't. And then, maybe you'll be scarred for life, but maybe you'll be less scarred for life with the fire blanket instead of the chemical shower. So I know it's fun to think about, but it's something to be aware of. After doing your chemistry lab, you're going to want to clean up after yourself. In most cases, after you leave here, another class will come in and they're probably going to be doing the same experiments. You're probably going to want to leave things the same way that you found them. So when you come in, make kind of a note of what was there and where it was so that you can put things back the way that it was. But, as you're cleaning up at the end, it raises the question, what do you do with your chemicals once you're done with them? Well, most of the chemicals that we're going to work with, you can simply dump down the drain. So I would take my beaker and I would just pour it down the drain in the sink. There are a few that we're not going to want to do that with. Obviously, you can't do that with something that's solid. If you have some piece of metal that you've been working with, you're not going to put that in the sink. Please don't put that in the sink. It's hard to get it out of the sink. Don't put it in the sink. If it's something solid you need to dispose of, you put it in the garbage can, right? If it's something liquid, you put it on the sink. There are some things where we are not going to want to do that. Most of the things that we work with aren't going to hurt the environment that much, so we just put it down the sink. But every now and then we'll work with something that might, so there will be a special place to dispose of it. And I'll tell you, don't put this down the sink, put this in this beaker or something. There's a lab where the chemical that the byproduct of what you've been working with is kind of valuable. It contains silver, and obviously I don't want you to pour that down the sink. I'm going to recycle it so that I can use the silver again in the next year, right? So I'll tell you where to put that. So when you're done with your lab, dispose of your chemicals appropriately. If I haven't told you, then you can put it down the sink or in the garbage can. If I have told you, then do what I said, right? After you've done that, clean up your glassware. Sometimes we're going to want extremely clean glassware, but most of the time it's going to be enough just to rinse it out in the sink and then leave it to dry, right? So rinse out your glassware, put everything back where you found it. If you're the last class of the day, then I might ask you to help put stuff away at the end. But for most of you, it'll just be a matter of rinse off your glassware, dispose of your chemicals, and make sure you do so. I have left the chemistry lab and I've removed my Snazzy Chemistry protective equipment. And there's just a couple more things that I want to talk about here before we wrap up this video. The first one, if you have questions about the chemicals that you're working with, about safety issues relating to the chemicals that you're working with, number one, you can totally ask me and I'll totally tell you. Number two, you could go online and look up what's called the Materials Safety Data Sheet, or the MSDS, for that particular chemical. It's really easy to find. Just go to Google MSDS and the chemical's name, and you'll find the MSDS for that chemical, and it will tell you, it's a safety sheet. It tells you all about the dangers with working with that chemical. It tells you all about the kinds of, is it reactive, is it flammable, is it, stuff you should not do with that chemical, stuff you should do with that chemical, safety equipment you should wear, all that fun stuff, right? Fun thing about the MSDS is that, if you go out in the world and you have a job where you work with some kind of chemical, and not just like in a chemistry lab, like, I don't know, if you scrub floors or something and you use a particular cleaning chemical to scrub floors, your employer is required to have an MSDS on hand for whatever chemicals you might be exposed to. So, it goes beyond the chemistry lab. You can find these things for chemicals that you work with, out in your jobs in the world and stuff like that. Another thing I want to talk about here is and I'm sure you've seen this, is what's called the hazard diamond, right? Maybe you go to the gas station, they sell propane there, you see the hazard diamond on the propane tanks. Maybe you're stuck in traffic waiting for a train to pass, and on the cars on the train going past, you see the hazard diamond, right? The hazard diamond is a real quick and simple way for you to tell what dangers there are associated with working with a particular chemical, right? So maybe the train car is carrying a bunch of, whatever chemical, they put the hazard diamond on the side of the train car, right? There's 4 squares in the hazard diamond, and, the top one, the red one, is a number that goes between 0 and 4 that tells you about the flammability of that particular chemical. How flammable is it? If it's a 0, the thing won't burn. If it's a 4, man, that thing's gonna burn just by the slightest nothing, right? The blue diamond on the left side of the hazard diamond tells you how dangerous it is for your health. And again, it'll be a number between 0 and 4. A 0 means like it's not hazardous to your health at all. A 4 means, man, this stuff is gonna kill you. The yellow diamond on the right side tells you how stable the chemical is, right? Stable means like, is it going to blow up or is it fine, right? So again, 0 to 4, 0, it's fine. 4, man, this thing's just going to explode if you sneeze at it. And then the white diamond on the bottom is there to tell you if there's any kind of special hazard associated with that particular chemical. You might see some symbols there that maybe there's a symbol like don't mix this with water. Maybe there's some other symbols there. That white one on the bottom is just to tell you about, some other warnings. So we got flammability, health, stability, and other warnings on that hazard diamond. Okay, so when you take a look at a chemical bottle, right, this is a bottle of acetone. It's the primary component in nail polish remover. You take a look on the side there. What do you see? There's a hazard diamond. If you take a look at that, right, you can see under the flammability at the top, this one is a 3, which means it's flammable. On the side for health, you can see, it's a 1 for health, which means it's not that dangerous for your health. And then as far as stability, we've got a 0, which means this stuff ain't gonna blow up. And if you look at the special warnings on the bottom, there are no special warnings on the bottom there. So you can find the hazard diamond on the bottles of chemicals as well. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is some different chemical warning symbols that you'll see on various things, right? This set of chemical warning symbols is in use everywhere in the world. So wherever you go in the world, if there is a chemical you need to be warned about, they can use these symbols. And these symbols don't use any words, they're just symbols. So regardless of what language you speak, you can understand the symbol, right? You see the first one here, the first symbol here, this symbol means corrosive. Okay, you see the beaker spilling on the counter and the beaker spilling on the hand. What that means is this stuff is corrosive. You'll find this label on like acids, right? That will burn, corrosive. The second one you see, it's like an exclamation point there. The exclamation point means this stuff is an irritant. Maybe it'll itch if it gets on your skin. Maybe it'll make you sneeze or something, some kind of irritant. The third one looks like a little explosion, means this stuff is explosive, right? It'll blow up. So be careful. Then you can see the fire, obviously, should be pretty apparent, means this stuff is flammable. It will burn. Don't confuse that one with the next one. The next one, you can see an O on fire. You see the O and there's the fire coming off of it, right? The O on fire means a little bit more than just it's flammable. It means that it's an oxidizer. And what an oxidizer is it's a chemical that contains its own oxygen, right? Probably everybody's seen, you take a candle, you light the candle, you put it under a glass. Once the candle burns up all the oxygen in there, it goes out. An oxidizer won't go out because it's got its own oxygen as part of the chemical, so it can burn even if there's no oxygen around. So that's an oxidizer. Don't confuse flammable and oxidizer. The next one there, you can see it looks kind of like a person, and he's got like a star in his chest, right? What that one means is that this stuff is a hazard to your health, right? Maybe it's a carcinogen, it'll cause cancer or something. It's some kind of hazard to your health. And then you'll see the skull and crossbones. Hopefully everybody recognizes the skull and crossbones means poison, right? Don't drink that. Don't drink the chemicals at all, right? But skull and crossbones means, it'll kill you. Then you can see the, I used to think this looked like a candle. I wasn't really quite sure what it was. It looks a little bit like a stick of dynamite. What it actually is a compressed gas cylinder. And the compressed gas cylinder, it's telling you that, here's a gas that's under pressure. And gases under pressure could be dangerous. They could explode or something, right? So gas under pressure is what that means. And then the last one, this one's my favorite. You can see it looks kind of like a dead tree and a dead fish. So you can tell the fish is dead because it's upside down. What this means is that this stuff is a danger to the environment. It's not good for the environment. So be careful with it there. So there are your chemical warning symbols. And again, these symbols, they're in use everywhere in the world. There's no words on them. So regardless of what language you speak, you can understand the warning symbol, right? So good ones to know. All right, so there is some stuff about lab safety. We've talked about, some of the different policies and procedures and stuff that we do in the lab to keep safe. How do we dress? What kinds of equipment are there? We've talked about some of the different warning symbols. We talked about the hazard diamond and the chemical warning symbols. And we talked about, where can you go to find information about the chemicals that you're working with, the MSDS. So hopefully that helps us to be able to know and apply lab safety practices. So until next time, take it easy.